The large auditorium fell silent as Commander Kex stepped onto the stage. His scared armor and the slight limp in his walk spoke of countless battles, while the medals adorning his chest gleamed under the bright lights. The young alien cadets sat straighter in their seats, their 4 eyes fixed on the legendary warrior before them. Kex surveyed the room, noting the eager faces of the future warriors of the Empire. Their scales still shone with the glossy sheen of youth, unmarked by combat. He could smell their confidence, that same confidence he once had before his first encounter with humans. "Today," he began, his deep voice carrying across the hall, "we will discuss the most dangerous species you will ever encounter." He paused, watching as several cadets exchanged knowing looks. They'd probably expected him to talk about the dreaded swarm, or perhaps the crystal mines of the Outer Rim. "Humans," he said simply. A wave of confused murmurs swept through the audience. One bold cadet even laughed, quickly trying to hide it with a cough. Kex's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair remained fixed on the young one who had laughed. "You find this amusing, cadet?" Kex asked, pointing to the young alien with his good arm. His other arm, a sophisticated mechanical replacement, whirred softly as he moved. The cadet stood up, trying to maintain composure. "Sir, with respect, humans are, well, they're soft. No natural armor, no claws, weak muscles compared to our species. Their planet isn't even fully unified. How can they be dangerous?" Kex walked to the edge of the stage, his mechanical arm catching the light. "This replacement," he said, tapping the metal limb, "was given to me by a human mining crew. Not soldiers, not warriors. Miners." He watched as confusion spread across the cadets' faces. "They used mining explosives to disable our ship shields. When we boarded their vessel, expecting easy prey, they sealed off sections of their ship and vented the atmosphere. My soldiers, wearing our finest combat suits, were thrown into space. The miners, in their simple work suits, used their maintenance tools as weapons." The auditorium was completely silent now. Even the bold cadet had sat down, all 4 eyes wide with attention. "I lost my arm when one of them, a female barely out of her youth, improvised a plasma cutter into a weapon. She removed my arm so cleanly that I didn't feel it until I saw it floating away." Kex touched his mechanical arm again, almost unconsciously. "Their medical team saved my life afterward. They said it was the right thing to do." Moving back to the center of the stage, Kex activated the holographic display behind him. Images appeared showing various human settlements, military bases, and civilian structures. "You look at these images and see primitive structures, inefficient designs, weak points." He changed the display to show recordings of human combat footage. "But humans don't think like us. They don't fight like us. Every weakness can become a strength. Every defeat, a lesson. Every limitation, a challenge to overcome." The footage showed humans fighting in various environments: Arctic wastes, burning deserts, dense jungles, and the vacuum of space. The cadets watched in growing unease as they saw humans adapting, surviving, and winning against seemingly impossible odds. "In the coming weeks, many of you will be assigned to patrol the human borders. Some of you think it will be an easy assignment, a chance to prove yourselves against a lesser species." Kex shut off the display and looked at each section of the audience. "I am here to tell you that this thinking will get you killed." He let the words sink in before continuing. "Today, I will tell you about my first real encounter with humans. Not the propaganda you've been fed, not the simplified reports you've studied, but the truth. By the end of this lecture, you will understand why every veteran warrior in our fleet treats humans with cautious respect." Kex's upper eyes blinked slowly as memory surfaced. "Let me tell you about the day I learned that being physically superior means nothing when facing an enemy who reimagines the rules of warfare with every battle." The cadets leaned forward, their earlier amusement forgotten, as Kex began his tale. Kex's memory drifted back to that fateful day, 15 cycles ago. His ship, the Pride of Dawn, had been patrolling the outer rim of newly claimed territory when their sensors detected a small human vessel. The ship's basic design and slow speed had made his crew laugh. It was a mining vessel, designated Deep Rock 7, with minimal weapons and standard shields. We thought it would be an easy victory, Kex continued, his mechanical arm making a soft whirring sound as he gestured. A chance for a young commander to prove himself. The mining vessel was in our claimed space, and protocol demanded we remove any unauthorized ships. The holographic display showed the blocky human mining vessel, its hull marked with dents and repair patches. Next to it, Kex's sleek military cruiser looked like a predator stalking its prey. I sent the standard warning, demanding their surrender. The humans responded with a simple message. "We're just collecting minerals. Let us finish our work and we'll leave." Kex's upper eyes narrowed at the memory. I refused. I wanted my first command to be memorable. Several cadets nodded in understanding, their own ambitions reflected in their commander's past mistake. We opened fire, aiming to disable their engines. Their shields were basic as expected. But then, Kex paused, his lower eyes blinking rapidly. They activated their mining charges, hundreds of them, scattered among the nearby asteroids during their work. The explosions created a debris field that overwhelmed our advanced shields. The display showed the chaos that followed, chunks of rock and metal hammering the pride of Dawn's hull. But it wasn't random. The humans had orchestrated the explosions to create a precise pattern of destruction. While we were dealing with the debris, they launched what we thought were escape pods. Standard procedure during surrender. Kex's voice grew harder. They weren't escape pods. They were mining drones, retrofitted with magnetic clamps and cutting tools. The footage showed small, crude-looking pods attaching themselves to the pride of Dawn's hull. The cadets watched in silence as these simple machines began cutting through their advanced armor like it was cloth. Their mining tools, designed to cut through asteroid rock, sliced through our hull plates with ease. They targeted our weapon systems first, then communications. We thought we had them trapped, but they had turned their entire ship into a weapon. Kex walked to the edge of the stage, his mechanical arm catching the light. I ordered my soldiers to prepare for boarding action. We would show these miners how real warriors fought. When we cut through their airlock, they fell back. We thought they were running. The veteran commander's voice grew quiet. They weren't running. They were sealing sections of their ship. One by one, they'd vented the atmosphere in areas we occupied. Our combat suits, designed for brief exposure to vacuum, couldn't compensate fast enough. I watched my soldiers get pulled into space, tumbling away into the darkness. The cadets sat in stunned silence as Kex continued. I confronted their leader in their engineering section, a human female, covered in grease and wearing a simple work suit. I thought my combat training would ensure victory in close combat. I was wrong. He held up his mechanical arm. She had modified a plasma cutter. One swipe, and my arm was gone. Clean cut, cauterized instantly. I passed out from shock, expecting death. Instead, I woke up in their medical bay. The holographic display showed medical records, detailed notes on how the humans had saved his life, adapted their medical procedures to his alien physiology, and even designed the first version of his mechanical arm. They treated my wounds, replaced my arm, and when I was healed, they let me return to my people. Their captain told me something I'll never forget. Next time, just ask nicely. We would have shared the mining rights. Kex turned back to face the cadets. That was my first lesson about humans. They're not just dangerous because they can fight. They're dangerous because they can turn anything into a weapon, adapt to any situation, and still show mercy to their defeated enemies. The room remained silent as the veteran commander let his words sink in. The story of the mining vessel wasn't over, but already the young cadets were beginning to understand why their superiors treated human space with such caution. The mining vessel incident was just the beginning. Kex continued, his mechanical arm making slight adjustments to the holographic display. 6 months later, I led my first ground assault against humans. We had located a small settlement on a forest world. Intelligence suggested minimal defenses, perfect for restoring my reputation. The display showed aerial views of dense forest canopy, with small clearings containing simple human structures. The cadets could see the tactical advantage their forces should have had: superior numbers, better equipment, and natural night vision that humans lacked. We deployed 500 elite warriors, the best in our fleet. The humans had maybe 50 fighters. Kex's upper eyes closed briefly at the memory. We lost 300 soldiers in the first day. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the audience. One cadet raised his hand, confusion evident on his scaled face. "Sir, how is that possible? Our armor alone should have protected us." Kex interrupted. "Let me show you." He switched the display to ground-level footage. The humans had studied the forest. They knew every tree, every root, every muddy patch. They didn't try to match our strength. Instead, they turned the environment itself against us. The footage showed alien soldiers marching through the forest. Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave way, not into simple pits, but into carefully engineered sinkholes that channeled soldiers into underground streams. Our heavy armor became a death trap in the water. They had mapped every underground current, creating paths that would sweep our soldiers kilometers away from their entry point. Kex pointed to another section of footage. And the trees. They had spent months hollowing out certain trees, creating hidden firing positions our scanners couldn't detect. The cadets watched as human soldiers seemed to appear from nowhere, fire a few shots, and vanish again into the forest. The aliens' return fire hit nothing but wood and leaves. By nightfall, we thought we had them surrounded in their main settlement. Then they triggered the forest fire. Kex's voice carried a mix of admiration and remembered fear. Not a random blaze, they had prepared channels and barriers months in advance. The fire moved exactly where they wanted it, herding us into prepared killing zones. The holographic display showed the chaos. Elite alien warriors, their tactical formations broken, stumbling into clearings where simple but lethal traps awaited them. Camouflaged pits containing sharpened stakes, tripwires that triggered salvos of primitive but effective projectile weapons. We had night vision, but the fires ruined it. The smoke blocked our thermal imaging. And the humans. Kex shook his head slowly. They had memorized every escape route, every safe path. They moved through their burning forest, like shadows, striking and vanishing. He turned to face the cadets directly. By dawn, we had lost over half our force. Not to advanced weapons or superior tactics, but to mud, water, wood, and fire. The humans had turned the entire forest into a weapon. The display showed the alien forces retreat. The humans didn't pursue. They didn't need to. The forest itself had become their ally, making every step dangerous for the invaders. Their commander approached under a flag of truce after we retreated. An old human, one who had spent decades living in that forest. He told me something that haunts me to this day. "We didn't beat you with better weapons. We beat you because we respect this forest, and it taught us how to fight." Kex's mechanical arm whirred as he clenched his fist. That was my second lesson about humans. They don't just adapt to their environment. They form a relationship with it. Every terrain, every climate, every natural obstacle becomes their ally. They don't try to overcome nature. They learn from it. The holographic display faded to darkness, leaving the auditorium in contemplative silence. The cadets, who had entered the hall believing in their technological and physical superiority, now sat with troubled expressions. But even this, Kex added quietly, was just the beginning of my education about humans. Wait until you hear about the space station incident. The cadets leaned forward, their earlier bravado replaced by genuine interest, as their commander prepared to share his next encounter with humanity's surprising capabilities. After the forest disaster, our military command decided that open combat with humans was too costly. Kex continued, adjusting the holographic display to show a massive human space station. They ordered a covert operation. My team was to infiltrate Space Station Omega, disable its defenses, and allow our fleet to capture it intact. The display zoomed in on the station's rotating rings and central hub. Unlike the sleek alien architecture, the human station looked like it had been built piece by piece over decades, with different sections clearly added as needed. We thought its design was primitive. All those exposed sections, obvious weak points, minimal shield coverage. Kex's mechanical arm gestured at various parts of the station. We were wrong. Every apparent weakness was a trap. The footage shifted to show Kex's infiltration team, 12 of his best soldiers, entering through a maintenance airlock. Their advanced stealth suits made them nearly invisible to normal sensors. We'd breached the outer hull exactly as planned. Then the humans did something we never expected. They detected us by watching how their recycled air moved through the corridors. Kex's upper eyes narrowed at the memory. They didn't need sensors. They had studied every air current in their station. The cadets watched as warning lights suddenly flashed in the footage. But instead of security forces, the infiltrators faced something far more disorienting. They shut down the gravity generators, not all at once, but in a precise sequence. Kex pointed to different sections of the station. One section would be zero, then suddenly full gravity, then reverse gravity. They turned their entire station into a constantly changing gravitational maze. The footage showed the alien warriors struggling to maintain position as gravity shifted unpredictably around them. The humans, however, moved through this chaos with practiced ease. While we fought against the changing gravity, they launched their counterattack, not with weapons, but with tools. Kex brought up new images. They used magnetic maintenance robots to disable our stealth suits, repair foam meant for hull breaches to immobilize our soldiers. Construction tethers became capture nets. The display showed human workers in simple spacesuits, using their everyday tools with deadly efficiency. They weren't soldiers, but they knew their station intimately. Then they started breaking their own station, Kex said, his voice carrying a note of disbelief even years later. They deliberately detached sections of hull plating, using the station's rotation to turn them into projectiles. My soldiers were dodging pieces of the very station they were trying to capture. The cadets watched in amazement as humans in maintenance suits rode these flying pieces of debris like surfaces, using them as mobile cover and attack platforms. I lost half my team when they vented a cargo bay. Not through decompression. The humans had filled it with thousands of small maintenance parts first. When they blew the bay doors, Kex paused, his lower eyes blinking rapidly. Imagine facing a storm of tools, parts, and debris, all moving at high velocity in zero gravity. 3 of my best warriors were taken out by flying wrenches. The footage showed the chaos of that moment. A cloud of deadly debris turning a simple cargo bay into a killing zone. By the time they started using their construction exoskeletons as combat suits, I knew we had lost. My remaining team was trapped in a section with alternating gravity fields, being hunted by station workers wearing powered loading frames armed with hull-cutting tools. Kex shut down the display, leaving the auditorium in darkness for a moment. We escaped with only 4 survivors. The humans didn't pursue. They were too busy repairing their station, the same station they had partially dismantled to defeat us. He turned to face the cadets directly. That was my third lesson about humans. In space, they are even more dangerous than on the ground. They understand their environment so well that they can weaponize anything, even the void itself. They don't just survive in space. They turn space stations into living weapons. The lights came back up slowly, revealing the sobered faces of the young cadets. Their earlier certainty about human inferiority had been replaced by thoughtful concern. But the space station, Kex added, his mechanical arm whirring softly. That was just a prelude to the longest battle of my career, the siege that would change everything. The siege of New Hope Colony lasted 6 months. Kex began, bringing up a holographic image of a small human settlement on a harsh desert world. We had a force of 10,000 warriors, the latest siege equipment, and complete orbital superiority. The colony had 800 humans, including children. They had no military forces, just local security and civilians. The display showed the colony's modest defenses, basic shield generators, a few gun emplacements, and walls that looked primitive compared to alien fortifications. We expected surrender within days. The humans had limited water, no way to call for help, and nowhere to retreat. Kex's mechanical arm traced the outline of the colony. Instead, they taught us the true meaning of human endurance. The footage shifted to show the first assault. Alien forces advanced confidently across the desert, only to discover the humans had spent years preparing the terrain. They had seeded the desert with millions of small crystals, nearly invisible to our sensors. When our heavy vehicles passed over them, the crystals shattered, their dust clogging our engines and jamming our joints. Simple crystallized salt turned into a weapon. The cadets watched as advanced alien machinery ground to a halt, defeated by common mineral deposits. Then we discovered their water recycling wasn't primitive, it was revolutionary. Every drop of moisture, even from their own bodies, was captured and reused. They could survive indefinitely on resources that would barely keep our forces functioning for a week. Kex brought up thermal images of the colony. The children, we thought, were a weakness. They had trained them since birth to live in emergency conditions. While our warriors struggled with the heat, human children carried messages through maintenance tunnels, repaired equipment, and helped tend hydroponic gardens hidden underground. The display showed small figures moving efficiently through the colony, each one knowing their role in its survival. By the third month, we tried psychological warfare, broadcasting messages day and night to break their spirit. Kex's upper eyes narrowed. They responded by using our own broadcast energy to power their shields. Every attempt to demoralize them made their defenses stronger. New footage showed the colony at night, dimly lit but still functioning. They developed a rotation system, 4 hours of sleep per person, 20-minute meals, constant movement. Their entire colony became a single organism, every human adapting to fulfill whatever role was needed. The cadets watched in silence as the footage showed humans of all ages working together. Elderly colonists teaching young ones how to repair equipment, children helping to tend to the wounded, every person contributing to survival. In the fourth month, they began their counterattacks. Not with weapons, but with knowledge. Kex's voice carried a note of grudging respect. They had studied our technology, our patterns, our weaknesses. They started broadcasting frequencies that disrupted our neural patterns, using our own communications against us. The display showed alien warriors struggling to function as the humans turned their own technology into a weapon. By the 5th month, my soldiers were breaking down. The endless heat, the constant alertness needed to watch for human tricks, the knowledge that we were being outlasted by beings we had considered inferior. Kex paused, his mechanical arm whirring softly. Meanwhile, the humans had adapted so well to crisis conditions that they were teaching their children mathematics between defense shifts. He brought up the final footage, the day they retreated. The colony stood, battered but unbroken, its people thin but unbowed. We withdrew after 6 months, not because they defeated us in battle, but because they simply refused to break. They outlasted our supplies, our morale, and our conviction. Kex turned to face the cadets directly. Their leader's final message to us was simple. We didn't survive because we're stronger. We survived because we're together. The display faded to darkness as Kex concluded. That was my 4th lesson about humans. Their greatest weapon isn't technology or tactics. It's their ability to adapt and unite in the face of impossible odds. A single human might be weak, but a united human community is nearly indestructible. The cadets sat in thoughtful silence, their earlier bravado completely gone, as they contemplated the implications of a species that could turn 6 months of siege into a demonstration of unbreakable resolve. Everything changed 2 years after the siege. Kex continued, bringing up a new holographic display, showing a massive swarm of crystalline ships. The crystal mines emerged from deep space, threatening both our territories. For the first time, we faced extinction. And then something remarkable happened. The display split to show both alien and human fleets gathering together. The same humans we had fought, whose colonies we had attacked, approached us with an offer of alliance. They had studied the crystal mines and developed strategies to fight them. Kex's mechanical arm gestured to tactical displays showing joint human-alien formations. Our military command thought it was suicide to trust humans in combat. But we had no choice. The crystal mines had already destroyed 3 of our core worlds. The footage showed the first joint battle. Human ships, seemingly primitive compared to both alien vessels and crystal ships, moved in unexpected patterns. They taught us to be unpredictable. Our formations were too perfect, too logical. The crystal mines could predict our every move. But humans. Kex's upper eyes showed something close to amusement. Humans fight like they're making it up as they go along, because they are. The cadets watched as human ships performed maneuvers that seemed to defy both physics and logic, yet somehow worked. They flew through their own explosion debris, used damaged ships as weapons, and turned retreat into ambush opportunities. I commanded a joint strike force, half our warriors, half human volunteers. They modified our weapons, suggesting changes that our engineers had never considered. One human mechanic turned our standard plasma cannon into something they called a shotgun effect. Completely illogical, totally inefficient, and devastatingly effective against crystal ships. New footage showed hybrid weapons in action. Alien technology modified with human innovation. The results were chaotic, but undeniably successful. But the real surprise came in ground combat. Kex continued. Humans taught our warriors to think differently. Instead of relying on pure strength or advanced technology, they showed us how to use everything around us as a weapon. They called it working smarter, not harder. The display showed joint training sessions, alien warriors learning human guerrilla tactics, while humans learned to use alien technology. Both sides growing stronger by combining their approaches. One human surgeon spent 3 days teaching my best unit how to use cooking supplies as explosives. A human engineer showed us how to turn our own sonic communications into weapons. They took everything we thought we knew about warfare and turned it sideways. Kex brought up battle footage showing the results. Alien warriors using human improvisation tactics, while humans wielded modified alien weapons with devastating effectiveness. The crystal mines couldn't adapt to our combined tactics. They could predict alien strategies, they could calculate human chaos, but they couldn't handle both at once. We were becoming something new, neither human nor alien, but a fusion of both. The footage showed the final battle, where joint human-alien forces drove the crystal mines back into deep space, not through superior technology or numbers, but through sheer unpredictability and adaptability. That was my final lesson about humans, Kex said, his mechanical arm powered down to rest mode. Their greatest strength isn't their ability to fight. It's their ability to teach, to learn, to combine different ideas into something new. They don't just adapt to survive. They help others adapt with them. He switched the display to show current images of human and alien forces training together, sharing knowledge, combining their strengths. The humans had every reason to reject our alliance. We had been their enemies. But they saw a bigger picture, a chance not just to survive, but to grow stronger together. They turned former enemies into their most powerful allies, not through force or fear, but through cooperation and innovation. The cadets watched in fascination as the display showed the results of this collaboration. Hybrid ships, combined tactics, shared technology that was greater than the sum of its parts. Remember this, Kex concluded. Humans aren't dangerous because they're strong. They're dangerous because they can make everyone around them stronger, even their former enemies. The auditorium fell silent as the young cadets processed this revelation, understanding that they were looking at the future of their species, not conquest or competition, but collaboration with humanity. Kex's mechanical arm whirred as he shut down the holographic display for the final time, leaving the auditorium lit only by standard lights. The cadets sat in respectful silence, their earlier arrogance replaced by thoughtful understanding. "So now you know," he said, moving to the center of the stage. "You came here thinking you would learn about an enemy. Instead, you learned about the most remarkable allies our species has ever known. But more importantly, you learned why treating humans with anything less than full respect is a deadly mistake." He looked across the rows of young faces, seeing the change in their expressions. Their four eyes no longer held the gleam of superiority, but rather a new awareness. "Today, I serve as the primary instructor for joint human-alien combat training. The same humans who cut off my arm, who defeated my forces in that forest, who outlasted us at New Hope Colony. They are now my colleagues and friends." His mechanical arm caught the light as he gestured. "This replacement arm, it's the 15th version, jointly designed by our engineers and human technicians, each version better than the last, because we learned to combine our strengths." Walking to the edge of the stage, Kex pointed to the entrance. The doors opened, and a human instructor walked in. The cadets straightened in their seats, some showing nervous twitches in their scales. "This is Instructor Tom. He was part of the mining crew that first defeated me. Now he teaches advanced space combat tactics to our elite units." The human nodded to the cadets, a slight smile on his face. "He can outmaneuver our best pilots, not because he's stronger or faster, but because he thinks differently than we do." Tom stepped forward, his simple instructor's uniform a stark contrast to the ornate alien military dress around him. "Commander Kex left out the best part of the mining ship story," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the room. "After we gave him that first mechanical arm, he immediately started suggesting improvements. That's when we knew your people would make perfect allies." Kex's upper eyes showed amusement. "The point, cadets, is this. Humans are not what they appear to be. They are not simple. They are not primitive. They are not predictable. Every time you think you understand their limits, they will surprise you." He gestured to the various medals on his chest. Half of these were awarded for victories fighting against humans. The other half were awarded for victories fighting alongside them. And I can tell you without doubt which victories I'm more proud of. Moving back to center stage, Kex stood straight, his mechanical arm perfectly still. "Tomorrow, you begin joint training exercises with human cadets. Some of you are nervous. Some of you still think you're superior. Both reactions will get you into trouble." Tom stepped up beside him. "We're not here to compete," the human added. "We're here to combine our strengths. Your natural armor and our adaptability. Your advanced technology and our innovative thinking. Your disciplined tactics and our creative chaos." Kex nodded. "The galaxy is vast and often hostile. The crystal mines may return. New threats may emerge. But together, our species are stronger than either of us could be alone." The cadets rose to attention as Kex delivered his final words. "Remember my stories. Remember the lessons paid for in blood and pride. But most importantly, remember this. The humans you meet tomorrow aren't your competition. They're not your subordinates. They're your future comrades in arms. And if you're very lucky, they might even become your friends." As the cadets filed out of the auditorium, many of them glanced back at the unusual pair on stage. The battle-scarred alien commander and the human instructor, standing together as equals. "Think they learned anything?" Tom asked quietly. Kex's mechanical arm whirred softly as he crossed it over his chest in a gesture of satisfaction. "They learned what I learned, that the most dangerous thing about humans isn't their ability to fight us. It's their ability to turn us into something better than we were before." The lights dimmed in the auditorium, leaving just the glow of emergency strips marking the exits. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joint exercises, and new opportunities for both species to learn from each other. The war stories were over. The real work was just beginning.